Hi, and welcome to the 13th episode of our 50 Pages a Day War and Peace Quarantine Edition read through. I am Matthew Robinson. Joining me for the 13th time in a row in a lovely horizontally striped shirt is Dimitri Portnoy. Hello, Dimitri.
I really should stick to vertical stripes. How are you doing, Matt?
I'm excellent, thank you. Napoleon.
Yes.
A lot of
And these
Napoleon.
are very frightening pages, very
Mm,
engrossing pages. And if I had read them 4 years ago, I would have said, oh, what a funny little historical anecdote. May I
sure.
read you a little bit of Napoleon's dialogue?
Oh, yes, please. Go
Uh,
right ahead.
Yeah, on page 621, he complains that the Tsar, the sovereign, made his own separate peace with Turkey rather than going to war against Turkey with Napoleon.
Right.
And he said, I would have given your sovereign those provinces, just as I gave him Finland. Yes, he went on, I promised, and I would have given the Emperor Alexander Moldavia and Wallachia, but now he won't have those beautiful provinces.
Mm,
That word beautiful stabbed me in the heart.
why?
Well, beautiful is the favorite word of our own Bonaparte.
Mm, okay. Who is our own Bonaparte, Dimitri?
uh, he who will remain nameless on this particular. Yeah, but Napoleon is very much a trump.
What do you think Tolstoy thinks of Napoleon?
Uh, I that is a very good question. I think Tolstoy definitely thinks that Napoleon is full of himself,
Hmm.
and is very much a blowhard.
A
Uh,
god king, maybe.
well, but a spoiled brat. And
Yeah, and potentially a fool as well in terms of his self obsession. I mean, the moment where he watches the Ulars kill themselves in order to get a glance at him and turn his back on them in contempt is not the way you describe somebody that you have much respect for.
Yes, and Tolstoy actually spends several pages at the beginning of the section asking, well, what's the real cause of war? Who knows? Maybe it's a broken
Yeah.
promise by a sovereign or a letter from a
Well,
diplomat.
let me read that actually, because that's one of the more famous quotes from this book, and it is a beautiful piece of writing. So this is Tolstoy on war. On the 12th of June, the forces of Western Europe crossed the borders of Russia, and war began. That is, an event took place contrary to human reason and to the whole of human nature. Millions of people committed against each other such a countless number of villainies, deceptions, betrayals, thefts, forgeries, and distributions of false banknotes, robberies, arsons, and murders as the annals of all the law courts in the world could not assemble in whole centuries, and which, at that period of time, the people who committed them did not look upon as crimes. That's a pretty much the only dictionary definition one would ever need of war.
Yes, but after saying that war is multifaceted and has so many different causes and so complex, he dangles in front of the reader an ugly puppet
Hmm.
that is so risible and so offensive that not to go to war against Bonaparte seems wrong.
Sure, but at the same time, he seems to remove free will from everybody. Even destroying the great man theory of saying Napoleon is no more important as a tool as anyone else in this war or events that took place thousands of years that everything, including every deed done by Napoleon, is the last stitch in a giant quilt that you cannot say is the cause of the whole thing, but is just another piece of the parcel.
It seems from the pages that Napoleon cannot even govern himself. He
Hmm.
starts the war on a whim.
Yeah.
He's not in control of his own impulses. And ultimately, that's what dooms him. No matter how brilliant he is a tactician, he's going after a prize that he wants for reasons that he may not even be able to explain to himself.
Right.
Uh, but I find Tolstoy's portrait of Napoleon much more convincing now than I might have found it a few
Yeah.
years ago.
Sure, sure, sure. We get a great little sort of behind the scenes West Wing esque look at the diplomacy at the highest levels as Balashov goes to visit Napoleon under order of Alexander to attempt to sue for peace. And it's clear that Napoleon just likes the sound of his own voice and is quite willing to happily go to war. But that there's this strange enjoyment that he gets of having, this French envoy, this diplomat, this Russian envoy and diplomat there, and that there's this sort of gentleman's agreement of self-respect and, him trying to win him over. And yes, I know you fight for the other side, but clearly you would fight for me if only you were born in France, and yada, yada, yada. But I found that to be
he needs praise.
yeah, and I found that to be a
needs to be
fascinating.
congratulated.
Yeah, and it was a fascinating bit of sort of the side of war you never see, which is like the last day of diplomacy before the war begins. It was an interesting perspective.
Yes, and the fact that Napoleon insulted the ambassador
Yeah.
first, and then the next day pretended that it never happened and invited him to lunch and treated him like the insults were par for the course, which apparently they are.
Yeah. So after our Napoleon scenes, and these are the first real Napoleon scenes. Up until now, all we've had is Napoleon sort of walking through the frame of our other characters, and now we are actually getting full-fledged scenes that are where he is the focal point, as opposed to a figure in somebody else's storyline. But then we leave Napoleon and we go to Prince Andrei, who we learn maybe cares a little bit more about the slight handed him by Anatole than he at first let on, and is now willing to basically risk his career and his life in order to attempt to get vengeance on Anatole by coming up with a reason to have a duel with him. And he doesn't want that reason to be Natasha because it would then out what happened between them and it would ruin her socially. So he's now trying to chase him through the war in order to come in contact with him and make up some reason that he now has to challenge him to a duel. And he even says most likely die himself rather than win the duel. But like a hungry man leaping upon food, he can't stop himself.
And he chases him to Turkey. He chases him to Petrograd, and Anatoly keeps one step ahead of him, whether consciously or not.
Yeah, Tolstoy doesn't tell us which. Yeah, but it would be surprising if he wasn't running like a coward. I would imagine he is. But this obsession with self and with his own desires of vengeance are undoing all other areas of Andrei's life. He goes home and for the first time in his life has a massive fight with his own father, wherein they leave unresolved and he may never see his father again. He attempts to have a loving moment with his son and finds himself incapable. And in a very disturbing and cold scene where his son is begging him to finish a story, he just picks him up, puts him on the floor, and leaves the room. And never,
a story about Bluebeard, by the way,
exactly.
Which in itself is maybe not an appropriate tale to tell a 7-year-old. But it shows you where Andrei's mind is, that he doesn't even finish a story that he shouldn't have begun in the first place. But he, in addition to his father and his son, he also finds his sister disgusting.
Yeah, and this description of Prince Maria is so cutting to the bone from Tolstoy. He says, Princess Maria was the same timid, plain, aging maiden, uselessly and joylessly living through the best years of her life in fear and eternal moral suffering. I mean, if that doesn't describe every single American woman in puritanical times, or even every puritanical man in those, I mean, it's just such a condemnation of what religion can do to ruin one's life, and this self-afflicted asceticism.
I wanted to know what a Russian Little Women would be like.
Yeah, very depressing. And as Prince Andrei is leaving, there's another section I wanted to read because it was such a, I mean, this to me is like Napoleon has been, Napoleon, that's funny. Tolstoy has been dancing around, depression and nihilism, but this one paragraph is one of the darkest things I've ever read, and such a accurate portrayal of, uh, of real depression. So this is Andre leaving. So it must be, thought Prince Andre as he was driving out of the avenue of the house at Bald Hills. She, a pathetic, innocent being, stays to be devoured by a senile old man. The old man feels he's to blame but cannot change himself. My boy is growing up and rejoices at life in which he will be the same as everybody else, the deceived or the deceiver. I'm going to the army. Why? I don't know myself, and I wish to meet a man whom I despise in order to give him an occasion to kill me and laugh at me. Before, too, there had been the same conditions of life, but before they had all cohered, while now everything had fallen apart. Nothing was meaningless phenomena, without any connection with each other, presented themselves to Prince Andre one after the other. I mean, wow, that's super depressing, bro.
The coldest lines there for me are the ones where he sees no hope for his son.
Yeah, he'll either be the deceiver or
that,
the deceived. That's it. And they're both equally
which is
horrible.
Again, a perfect crystallization by Tolstoy of the choice and of the lack of choice and of despair that I wish I hadn't read. And now it's going to stay with me. Now it's going to be...
Yeah, when Tolstoy wants to get dark, he'll get darker than anyone.
As much as I love these pages, and these are my favorite pages that don't have Pierre or Natasha in them. I wish I hadn't read them. It really is a Nietzschean look into the abyss.
No, he'll give Dostoevsky a run for his money. He really will. If you want to have a dark off, I think Tolstoy wins actually.
And Dostoevsky needs pages and pages to get to this point.
Yeah.
Tolstoy can get there with
one sentence.
A phrase.
Yeah, exactly.
With one sentence.
So from there, we get to a very long and beautifully written section of the 9 factions of people with all their different ways of looking at the war, and he covers everybody, and he says 99% of the people are part of the faction that wants one thing, which is just to chase their own desires, and all the rest are meaningless.
Get rubles.
Yeah, get money. Get money.
Which he says,
We then have a brief moment at Nikolai, which is cut short under 50 pages, but he decides he does not want to go home, where things have fallen to shit, and Natasha is ill and everything's bad. But he does write a letter to Sonia and say, look, if I survive this, I will marry you, which is, we all know, is still more bullshit on his part, and he's just as much of a cad as Anatole probably. But
I didn't know that. Thanks for spoiling.
I'm not spoiling anything. This is what you would imagine at this point.
May I point out a bright spot?
Sure.
The doctor's wife does not get raped.
No, I know that is a disturbing scene where all the soldiers have crowded into this doctor's house, and they're all flirting maddeningly with his wife, and this poor man is just letting, what's he going to do? And there's definitely the tension of, will this turn into a pack of wolves and rapists? And yeah, that's definitely what Tolstoy wants you to
and
fear.
Nikolai maybe doesn't want to get back to Sonia because he has a 16-year-old admirer at the front who loves him like a woman.
Yeah. That's true. Well, that's it for today. We are up to page 650. Tomorrow we'll hit the impressive number of 700, a number where most novels would have decided long ago to pack it in and write the end. But Tolstoy still has a lot left to say.
Yes. And again, I have to brace myself and steel myself. This novel does have a happy ending, right?
Oh, yeah, very happy. I'm sure. Definitely. It's going to be great. Everything will be fine. Everyone will live.
I mean, just like in Anna Karenina.
Yeah, everyone will be alive, and everyone will. It ends with a giant 9-way wedding. It's very exciting.
Yes, like a by. I'll tell you afterwards. Okay. It's probably not. It's irrelevant to this cast.
Alrighty. Well, we will join you again tomorrow from page 700. Carry on reading. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.
See you then.